My wife and I were clearly in a contractual marriage only. But when I brought up divorce, that bastard, that son of a bitch, divorce like hell, I'll let you. He not only confiscated my suitcase, but also called a locksmith in the middle of the night to weld my bedroom door shut. Even when his first love returned to the country, he told her to get lost. All because years ago, he got into a car accident trying to save his first love. We entered a contractual marriage for me to take care of him for 3 years. He originally thought I was one of his admirers. Only later did he realize that he was the substitute. It was only when I truly left that the once arrogant young master was no longer arrogant. Jason, I can't live without you. Please, I'm begging you to come back. 6 p.m. I prepared dishes according to Tanya's taste. 6 dishes and 1 soup already. 7 p.m. I drew a bath and placed beside it Tanya's beloved roses and aromatherapy candles. 8 p.m. I arranged Tanya's slippers by the entrance. 9 p.m. The front door was pushed open by Tanya. I stepped forward, taking her coat, while placing the slippers right in front of her. After hanging the coat in the nearby closet, I asked whether she wanted to bathe first or eat first. She glanced at her phone and replied casually, "Bath first." The clock hand on the wall had made half a turn. Tanya emerged from the bathroom, wearing a bathrobe, toweling her hair dry. I immediately handed her the pajamas. While she changed clothes, I went to the kitchen to bring out the freshly reheated dishes. Tanya had grown accustomed to everything I did for her. She was in a particularly good mood today, constantly looking at her phone, as if chatting with someone. As I arranged the bowls and chopsticks, I passed by her, catching a glimpse of her lit phone screen. The contact name at the top, marked as Honey, blazed into my vision. I quietly averted my gaze and turned toward the kitchen. My phone suddenly rang. I pulled it out. The screen displayed Tom. The moment I answered, Tom's voice came through from the other end. "Jason, are you really going to divorce Tanya?" I watched a cluster of fireworks quietly bloom outside the window. After a long pause, I softly replied, "Mother, you know the truth. He and I are together only because of that contract. Now the contract has expired. And besides, Sean has returned from abroad. He seems quite happy about it. He doesn't need me anymore." Tom on the other end let out a long sigh. Her words filled with regret. "You've suffered all these years. I know all the pain you've endured. I thought that after all this time, your devotion would make him fall in love with you. But never mind. Now that Sean has returned anyway, I won't worry about him anymore. 5 years ago, you gave up studying abroad for Tanya. If you still want to pursue your studies now, I can help arrange everything." I gazed at the night blooming serious in full bloom, my eyes losing focus for a moment. These 5 years because of Tanya. My life had been stagnant for far too long. It was time to move forward again. So I nodded. "Thank you then. Please make the arrangements for me. I want to leave as soon as possible." After hanging up the phone, the fireworks outside the window quietly withered. Just like my 5-year marriage, it was finally coming to an end. I came from a poor family. It was the Tang Corporation's sponsorship that allowed me to continue my education, enabling me to achieve academic success and successfully obtain the school's only study abroad exchange opportunity. For this reason, before going abroad, I specifically went to the Tang family to thank them. I wasn't the only one they sponsored, but I was the first to come express gratitude. This made Mrs. Tang, who had planned to dismiss me with a few casual words, take a closer look at me. After hearing my purpose, she remained silent for quite a while before speaking. "If you truly want to repay this kindness, then do me a favor." From Mrs. Tang's words, I learned the story of Tanya and Sean. Tanya was Heaven's favored daughter. Sean was Heaven's chosen son. Both born into wealthy families, the two had been childhood sweethearts growing up together. Everyone could see that Tanya was in love with Sean, but Sean wanted a love that would flow like a quiet stream. Finally, when they graduated from college, Tanya felt the timing was right and prepared to confess. But Sean suddenly got a girlfriend and went abroad with that person. Unable to believe it, she chased to the airport that very night, but got into a car accident halfway there. And just as he woke up after surgery, Sean had already eloped with that person abroad. After that, he locked himself in his room all day long. A once proud princess had fallen so low. It was perfect timing when I showed up at their door. Mrs. Tang decided to let me help him move on from this relationship. So to repay their kindness, I gave up my opportunity to study abroad and signed a 5-year contract with Mrs. Tang. At a banquet, I deliberately orchestrated a meeting with Tanya, pretending to fall in love with her at first sight. I began pursuing her with wild passion. From then on, everyone in our circle knew that Tanya had a man by her side who loved her to madness. Tanya gradually grew accustomed to how good I was to her, yet she never took that final step. Until that night, she was gambling with her girlfriends on a yacht. Whoever's male companion could dive into the sea to find the ring they'd thrown overboard would win the land in North City. I knew perfectly well that to secure that piece of land, she hadn't slept for several nights. When everyone else cowered before the massive waves, I didn't hesitate to jump into the sea. That was the first time Tanya shed tears for me. She held me tightly when I was pulled from the water, her eyes filled with fear and trembling. "Let's get married. I'll try to love you." But later I discovered that night she agreed to marry me only because Sean had posted a social media update that very day, showing him kissing his wife passionately under the northern lights. Even so, to fulfill that contract, to remove Sean from her heart, I still desperately tried to be good to Tanya, learning that her childhood birthday wish was to see shooting stars, but her parents were too busy with work to ever take her. I spent half a year afterward searching for the perfect mountaintop to observe meteors, but that night I waited all night long. Tanya never showed up. Later I found out she had gone to see Sean. At that time, Sean's marriage was already showing cracks. From that day forward, she would travel abroad once a week, each time preparing all sorts of novel and interesting gifts to deliver to Sean's doorstep, trying to win his heart without letting me know. The day Sean returned to the country to catch the first glimpse of him, she got into a car accident while speeding. I stayed awake watching over her for 3 days and nights. Even while unconscious, she called out Sean's name 999 times from her hospital bed. In that moment I finally understood. The task Mrs. Tang had given me would never be completed. Fortunately, our contract was set to expire in July. Sean had also divorced and returned home. Tanya finally got her heart's desire to wait for her beloved, and it was time for me to leave. From now on, both of us could start new lives. "Who were you talking to on the phone?" Seeing that I hadn't come out for a long time, Tanya got up and came to the kitchen to find me, only to see me standing there staring at my phone in a daze. I finally snapped back to reality, calmly saying, "No one." Deep in the quiet night, beside me Tanya's gentle breathing, I lay with my eyes open staring at the ceiling, sleepless all night. The next morning, looking at the Western breakfast before her, Tanya couldn't help but frown. "You know I don't like Western food. Why did you make this today?" I held my fork with steady lips, cutting a piece of steak and chewing it slowly. This was all that was left in the fridge. Actually, that wasn't true. I just wanted to prepare for studying abroad, so I thought I'd get used to the taste in advance. Fortunately, the woman across from me didn't think much of it. She placed her phone on the table, but her eyes constantly monitored it, as if waiting for someone's message. I didn't need to ask to know who she was waiting for. Suddenly the phone vibrated. She immediately grabbed her phone. Sean seemed to have sent something that made her incredibly happy. Her usually cold lips curved upward slightly. I quietly watched her for half a minute before pulling out the divorce papers I had prepared long ago. From the moment I signed that contract, I had been preparing for this moment. Now I was finally going to be free. "Tanya, let's get divorced." I spoke calmly. my tone as casual as discussing the weather. Tanya was completely absorbed in her chat with Sean. She didn't even hear what I said clearly, and replied dismissively, "MMHMM." I wasn't surprised at all, because this was how she'd treated me for 5 years, hot and cold. Now that Sean had returned to the country, she had withdrawn even her last bit of attention from me. I flipped the agreement to the final page. Along with the pen, I placed them in front of her, pointing to the signature line, "Sign here." MMHMM. She was busy chatting. Without even looking, she picked up the pen with one hand and signed her name where I pointed. Her other hand continued typing on her phone. I put away the agreement and continued speaking to Tanya after the 1-month cooling off period. "I'll be gone." Tanya still just hummed in response, then put down her fork and knife, getting up to leave. Looking at her retreating figure, I finally couldn't help but call out to her, "Tanya, do you know what I just said?" She stopped in her tracks, turning back to look at me with confusion. "Wasn't it about donating supplies to the orphanage? The contract you just had me sign? Isn't that what you mentioned a few days ago?" "What's wrong?" I laughed bitterly to myself. The supply donation contract. I had already gotten her to sign that last month. She truly didn't care about me, and truly hadn't heard what I said clearly. But it didn't matter anymore. So be it. "Tanya, live well with Sean from now on." So I smiled. Nothing that afternoon. I drove following the supply truck to the orphanage. After finishing up, I went to the director's office to say goodbye. "Director, I'm going abroad to study." The director was very happy for me after hearing this. I had been a top student in the art department. When I gave up studying abroad years ago, she had regretted it for a long time. "Jason, this is wonderful news." The director grasped my hand, smiling broadly. But then she seemed to think of something, her face showing worry. "But if you study abroad, won't that separate you and Tanya? Long-distance relationships are very difficult." I watched several children playing and running in the distance, shaking my head. "It's not a separation. She and I are divorced." The director was stunned at first, then let out a long sigh. I knew it. I wasn't wrong when I saw it initially. Your marriage wouldn't last long. If she truly loved you, how could she never accompany you back here all these years? It's good that you're divorced. I smiled back at the director. Yes, the divorce is truly good. After returning from the orphanage, I went straight upstairs, walking into the walk-in closet to pack my belongings. It was only then that I discovered how pitifully few clothes I owned. Just those few sets that Mrs. Tang had given me when we first married. And Tanya, whom I'd been married to for 5 years, had never once thought to buy me a single piece of clothing. After packing my clothes, I took all the gifts I'd given Tanya over the years and sold them all as scrap. All these years trying to win her favor, I had carefully prepared many birthday gifts for her. She had never looked at them even once. These gifts were all thrown aside, covered in a thick layer of dust. Watching the scrap truck drive away, just as I was about to return to the villa, I heard honking behind me. Turning around, I saw a Maybach stop in front of me. A woman in a red dress got out of the car. It was my sister-in-law, Quinn. Quinn looked at the departing scrap truck and snorted coldly, then looked me up and down, as expected from someone of humble origins, even selling cardboard for money. I didn't even look at her, turning to leave immediately. The mocking expression suddenly disappeared from Quinn's face. She stepped forward to grab me. "Jason, ever since I joined the Tang family, I had always humbly tried to please them, never giving her such a cold shoulder. Now that I dared treat her this way." A surge of anger immediately rose from Quinn's chest. "Are you deaf? I'm talking to you, didn't you hear?" I turned back and pulled her hand away, a flash of irritation in my eyes. Quinn had never liked me, feeling that someone of my status was completely unworthy of entering the Tang family. So for 5 years after marriage, she had constantly targeted me, either dumping the breakfast I made or stepping on the clothes I washed to dirty them. Now that I was finally going to be free, I didn't want to humbly please her anymore. Quinn was about to continue her tirade, but then seemed to think of something, looking at me with amusement. Someone like you should sell more cardboard. You don't know yet, do you? My sister's first love has returned. You usurper are finally going to get lost. As soon as she finished speaking, another man in a white shirt got out from behind her. This was my first time seeing Sean. He was indeed very handsome. These 5 years of shattered marriage had left no trace on him whatsoever. No wonder Tanya had been unable to forget him for so many years. Sean walked over and gently pulled Quinn's hand. Quinn, don't talk about Mr. Jason like that. He's your brother-in-law after all. What brother-in-law? Sean, I already told you in the car. My sister has always loved you. All these years she's never forgotten you. She travels abroad once a week to find you. All those gifts were bought by my sister for you. Can't you see my sister's feelings for you? After Quinn finished speaking, she commanded me, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and carry Sean's luggage inside." My sister already agreed to let Sean stay here. I glanced at the luggage, ignored it completely, and walked straight inside. Quinn was so angry she stomped her feet behind me. In the end, the driver carried the luggage in. Just as Quinn was about to angrily continue making trouble, Tanya hurried in from outside. Her gaze fell on Sean sitting properly on the sofa. Then she breathed a sigh of relief and spoke to me on the other side. "Sean's house has been uninhabited for years. It needs renovation, so he'll stay here with us for a few days." I said nothing in the silence. Sean stood up, his face full of unease. "Tanya, maybe I should leave after all. This is your marital home after all. Jason looks a bit unhappy." Tanya immediately reached out to stop him. "No need to leave. He's always been generous. He won't get angry over such a small matter." I silently watched this scene and finally spoke, a slight smile on my lips. "I indeed won't get angry over such a small matter. Sean, please make yourself at home here. After all, this house will belong to Sean sooner or later anyway." As if afraid Sean might still leave, Tanya immediately instructed the servants to move his luggage into the largest guest room. Quinn immediately turned triumphantly to look at me beside her. At this point, "What are you still doing standing here? Go make dinner. Oh, and Sean can't eat spicy food. Make it mild." Even though this house had servants, I had always been the one cooking. Only because Tanya had high standards and was picky. She wouldn't even eat food made by Michelin chefs. Only my cooking could barely satisfy her taste. But no matter how much thought I put into it, Tanya would only take a few casual bites. Occasionally Quinn would come eat too, but she would always criticize while eating. At this moment I shook my head lightly, speaking for words that shocked everyone. "I can't do it." Hearing my refusal, Tanya instinctively looked at me. In her memory, I had never defied anyone in their family. This was my first time refusing. Just as she was about to speak, Sean's beautiful eyes beside us reddened slightly. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have moved in. After all, I'm just an outsider. It's not right to have Mr. Jason cook for me." After saying this, he turned to go upstairs and pack, but was pulled back by Tanya behind him. "It has nothing to do with you." Then she looked at me, her tone slightly cold. "Didn't you say you weren't angry? What do you mean now?" I calmly raised my hand. Both my index finger and ring finger had band-aids on them. "I'm injured. I can't touch water for a while." Actually, I wasn't injured at all. It's just that the contract had ended, and I didn't want to waste my energy on Tanya anymore. So I deliberately put a few band-aids on my hand to use injury as an excuse to refuse cooking. The atmosphere suddenly froze. I had always been the one managing all household chores, so the villa's servants all left at closing time. Now besides me, no one else in the house could cook, even if we called the servants back. It was too late. Quinn frowned displeasedly, her words full of complaint. "Why didn't you say you were injured earlier? Are you deliberately trying to make us go hungry?" She was about to step forward and scold me, when Sean quickly pulled her back. "Quinn, Don't do this. Sean looked at Tanya beside him. Tanya, I've been abroad for so long. I've been thinking about that hot pot place by our high school gate. Remember how we used to go there after evening study sessions? How about we have hot pot tonight? Any request from Sean? Tanya would never refuse. Her tone gentle. Good, I'll take you there. When the group left, they brought me along too. All the way there Tanya drove, while chatting with the two people in the back seat, talking about their high school days. Sean became more and more cheerful as they talked. Quinn could occasionally chime in too. When they reached the funny parts, all three of them couldn't help but laugh. Halfway through their laughter, Sean suddenly seemed to remember something. Looking at me in the passenger seat with a smile, Mr. Jason, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to ignore you. It's just that you weren't part of those memories. Not only was I not part of those memories, I wouldn't be part of their future days either. I hummed in response and quietly closed my eyes. Tanya rarely glanced at me, inexplicably feeling that I seemed somehow different. After parking the car, I excused myself to go to the restroom first, cupping cold water in my hands and splashing it on my face. Looking up at myself in the mirror, my handsome face couldn't hide the weariness between my brows. The same 5 years of marriage. Sean's eyes were full of vitality, while I was utterly exhausted. Just hold on a little longer, and I would be completely free. I told myself this. When I returned to the private room, the three of them had already ordered clear broth for the hot pot base. Sean doesn't eat meat. More vegetables, please. No cilantro. Tanya looked at the menu while instructing the waiter beside her. Even after all these years, she still remembered Sean's preferences so clearly. Jason, do you have any dietary restrictions? After 5 years, this was the first time she asked about my taste. I sat on the other side, pulled out a tissue to wipe the bowl and chopsticks in front of me. Anything's fine except seafood. During this hot pot meal, Tanya only focused on Sean beside her, barely eating anything herself, but constantly serving him food. Halfway through the meal, the table next to us suddenly erupted in argument. It escalated more and more, until they actually stood up and started fighting. Other customers rushed forward trying to stop them, but unexpectedly, one of them had a violent temper and suddenly grabbed the scalding hot pot to throw it at the other person. That person quickly dodged. In the confusion, the hot pot splashed directly toward our table. Amidst the screams, Tanya leaned sideways, instinctively protecting Sean in her arms. I couldn't dodge in time, and watched helplessly as a large pot of boiling hot pot broth came splashing toward me. Instantly my body was covered in hot pot broth. My arms turned bright red and blistered immediately. The burning pain felt like tens of thousands of fine needles, piercing my entire body. The pain left me speechless. Jason, Tanya quickly released Sean and rushed toward me, for the first time showing panic in her eyes. Does it hurt? I'll take you to the hospital. I looked up at her, pain spreading through my entire body, unable to say a word despite my best efforts. Sean, how did you get hurt so badly? Upon hearing this, Tanya immediately shifted her attention to Sean. She rushed to Sean's side even more frantically. I saw on his arm a few drops of hot pot oil. It did look rather alarming indeed. Sean pulled back his arm and shook his head. I'm fine. Jason looks more serious. You should take him to the hospital first. What do you mean not serious? You've been pampered since childhood. Even a small scrape hurts you for a whole day. Sister, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and take Sean to the hospital. Quinn stamped her feet anxiously, not forgetting to point and warn those people. I'm telling you people, are you sick or something? If you want to fight, go outside. You hurt Sean. My sister won't let you get away with this. Now Sean could no longer endure the pain either. He drew in a sharp breath, but still insisted it's nothing. Tanya, you should go check on Mr. Jason. He's hurt much worse. The scene undoubtedly made her heart ache. She could no longer care about my disheveled state, and pulled Sean toward the exit. Before leaving, she seemed to remember something, looking at me with guilt. Sean has had sensitive skin since childhood. He's afraid of pain. The hospital isn't far from here. You can take a taxi to the hospital yourself. It wasn't until the three of them disappeared from my sight that I finally came back to my senses, enduring the pain while gasping for air, seeing how severely I was injured yet abandoned. A waiter nearby quickly came over sympathetically, apologizing to me while providing emergency treatment for my wounds. After taking painkillers, the pain in my body finally eased somewhat. At least I wasn't in so much pain that I couldn't speak. After borrowing a set of clothes from the waiter and changing, I shakily walked out to hail a taxi to the hospital. The doctor held cotton swabs, pressing on the blistered areas, while instructing me to apply medication daily, so it wouldn't leave scars. I closed my eyes tightly from the pain. Two nurses pushed a cart past me, talking as they walked by. If you ask me, Miss Tang really treats Mr. Sean well. Just a few drops of hot pot oil, and she reserved the entire floor. Even brought in all the dermatology specialists for consultation. If he'd come any later with such minor wounds, they would have healed already. I wish I could have a caring woman who liked me that much. Haha, don't even dream about it. That kind of woman is once in 10,000 years. Once in 10,000 years. I smiled, abandoning her severely injured husband to turn and care for someone with minor injuries. She truly was once in 10,000 years. After all my wounds were bandaged, I thanked the doctor and got up to leave. Just as I walked out of the hospital, my phone buzzed with a message. Opening it, it was from the foreign school I had applied to, sending an acceptance notice, reminding me that when reporting to school, I needed to prepare an admission portfolio. After 5 years of marriage, I picked up my paintbrush once again. After buying brushes and paints, I didn't return to the Tang house, but went to Embrace Moon Mountain instead. The scenery at Embrace Moon Mountain was beautiful. A tranquil lake nestled among the mountains. The water was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the surrounding peaks like a natural painting that lifted one's spirits. I let out a long breath. 5 years of suppression instantly vanished, leaving only long-lost freedom. Inspiration struck in my mind. The brush touched the pristine canvas. In the blink of an eye, a beautiful scene quietly emerged on paper. No noise, no dust. Only the mountain birds singing and gentle breezes. For 3 whole days I immersed myself in this beautiful scenery, until I went down the mountain to contact the school. That I finally turned on my phone. The moment it powered on, countless missed calls and text messages all popped up, filling the screen. All from Tanya. This had never happened before. In the past, only I would call and text her. She never called me. She wouldn't even call back missed calls. Just as I was stunned, Quinn's call came through as soon as I answered. A shrill voice came from the other end. Jason, where have you been all these days? Do you know my sister has been looking for you like crazy? Don't think this will get my sister's attention. Dream on. The position of Tang family's master can only belong to Sean. After finishing her tirade, Quinn hung up. I just frowned. Did I hear wrong? Tanya was frantically looking for me. What did she want with me? I wanted to ask Quinn if she was mistaken, but the 108 missed calls on my phone indeed confirmed Tanya's urgency in finding me. With such confusion, I carried my easel home. As soon as I got out of the car, the villa's servants rushed over, their faces filled with relief as if they'd survived a disaster. Several nearly cried, "Sir, you're finally back these days without you at home. The house has been in chaos. Everything we did Miss Tang was dissatisfied with. She's been angry for days, only then did I understand. She wasn't used to the lack of my care, but she should get used to it because soon I would be leaving completely. From now on she would have to live without me." I comforted the servants and walked into the villa. I saw that even the lights weren't turned on inside. Tanya sat alone on the sofa, hearing footsteps. The woman finally looked up, staring at me intently for a long time. her words suppressing a hint of displeasure. "Where have you been these past few days?" I took off my coat while speaking calmly. "I went to the mountains for inspiration." The woman frowned. "How did you suddenly become interested in painting?" "It's not sudden. I was originally a top student in the art department. If not for repaying a debt of gratitude, I would have studied abroad long ago and become an excellent painter. But I didn't tell Tanya any of this. Just picked up my water glass and took a sip, my tone very casual. Suddenly felt like painting." Seeing this, Tanya frowned slightly about the hot pot incident last time. "I didn't abandon you on purpose. It's just that Sean has been pampered since childhood and is afraid of pain. Even a small scrape would hurt him for a whole day. Growing up with him since childhood, I'm used to taking care of him. That's why I took him to the hospital first. Besides, you didn't object at the time, did you? Why are you throwing a tantrum and running away from home now? Sean's house renovation is finished. He's moved out from our place. Don't throw tantrums over such small matters anymore." By the end, her tone carried a hint of accusation. Whether she was accusing me of running away from home or accusing me of being petty and causing her beloved to move out early. But I didn't care anymore. I hummed dismissively, just as I put down the water glass and was about to go upstairs. Tanya's voice came from behind Jason. "I'm hungry, make me some noodles." I lifted my bandaged left hand again. "Did you forget that my hand is injured too?" Tanya was slightly stunned, but I didn't pay attention to her reaction. I turned and went upstairs. The next day, as I came out of my room, an expensive watch was held out in front of me. I looked up at Tanya in confusion. Tanya cleared her throat about the hot pot incident. "I was busy taking care of Sean at the time. Didn't have time to pay attention to you. This is compensation." I looked at the expensive watch in the box, a flash of complexity in my eyes. 5 years. A whole 5 years, and this was the first gift she'd given me. Yet it was compensation. Compensation for neglecting me while caring for her first love. I suddenly remembered that pile of carefully prepared gifts for Sean in her study. A wave of mockery surged in my heart, but I immediately suppressed it. Gifts I never dared hope for before. I didn't need them now either. Seeing that I hadn't responded for a while, she didn't think much of it. Just assumed I didn't like it. I've been busy with Sean's matters lately, so I had my assistant pick the most expensive one from the auction. "If you don't like it." Before Tanya could finish her sentence, Quinn's voice came from outside. "Sean, I already told you. My sister likes you so much you shouldn't have moved out. Even if you moved out, you should still come visit my sister more often." She said this while pulling Sean inside. After seeing the watch in my hand, she exclaimed with delight, "Sister, Sean just mentioned to me that he really likes this watch. I can't believe you actually bought it." Then she looked at Sean beside her, her eyes full of envy. Upon hearing this, Sean looked at Tanya with some surprise. I saw the hesitation in Tanya's eyes. Without thinking, I took the watch directly from my hand and handed it to Sean. "Since it was bought for you, then accept it." With one sentence, I made the choice for Tanya, resolving her dilemma. This was the first time Tanya's gaze didn't fall on Sean, but couldn't help looking at me instead. For some reason, watching my generous demeanor, Tanya felt uncomfortable for the first time. She sensed that I was different from before, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly how. She couldn't say clearly. A week later was the day the divorce cooling-off period ended. I could finally leave. I began packing my luggage. Halfway through packing, Tanya sent her assistant to deliver a haute couture dress, asking me to attend a banquet at the old mansion. Looking at that dress, I suddenly found it rather amusing. Legally speaking, our legal relationship had already been dissolved. Yet Tanya remained completely unaware. I wanted to refuse, but thinking of Mrs. Tang's care all these years, plus I still needed some documents for going abroad that I needed to get from Mrs. Tang, I still put on the formal wear and attended the banquet. In the bustling, lively banquet hall, Sean was surrounded by a group of friends. Sean, Ms. Tang really loves you. Yeah, that watch on your wrist was just auctioned off. Limited edition worldwide, symbolizing the world's one and only love. We heard there was some mysterious tycoon who spent a fortune to bid on it. Turns out it was Ms. Tang. Can't believe after all these years, Ms. Tang still can't forget you. I remember back in school, he would walk you to and from school every day. All those jellies and chocolates in your desk were secretly placed there by Ms. Tang. I remember once when you two had a fight, you ignored him for several days. He asked countless people for advice on how to win you back. He even came to me once. Sean, you don't know what he was like then. His eyes were completely bloodshot. Just a few days of you not talking to him nearly killed him. Sean, in this world, no one could love you more than Ms. Tang. When she learned you eloped with someone else, she was devastated beyond words. Later, knowing you weren't happy abroad, she flew over every week to secretly watch you, buying you gifts to make you happy. Now that you're divorced too, I can see she doesn't really care much for her current one. Jason, why don't you two just get together? Yes, yes, get together. Amidst the chorus of encouragement, I stood in the corner quietly watching the scene, listening to others cheer, describing how much my wife once loved another man. Jason, a voice suddenly came from behind, drawing my thoughts back. I turned to look at the person. I wanted to call her mom, but suddenly remembering something, I changed my words, respectfully calling her Mrs. Tang. Hearing this address, Mrs. Tang sighed but said nothing. She simply handed me all the documents needed for going abroad. Jason, everything you need to go abroad. I've arranged it all for you. School starts early over there, so I've bought your plane ticket too. It takes off in 3 hours. Is there anything else you need me to help you with? Looking at the documents in my hands, I felt relieved, thinking about the long-awaited freedom and new life that awaited me. My hands couldn't help but tremble. I took a deep breath, suppressing this excited feeling, put the documents in my bag, shaking my head. Thank you, Mrs. Tang, for doing all this for me. I'm already very grateful. After a pause, I seemed to remember something, saying softly, I have just one small request. If Tanya ever learns everything in the future and asks about my whereabouts, please be sure to say you don't know. Tanya and I should never see each other again in this lifetime. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Tang looked at me in surprise. Didn't you tell her about leaving? Tell her what? That I approached her deliberately back then, or that these 5 years of being desperately good to her wasn't out of love, but to repay a debt of gratitude, just following Mrs. Tang's instructions, trying to make her forget Sean, to move on from that failed relationship, or that I want to divorce her and go abroad and never come back. What good would telling her do? Her first love has already returned. Even if I leave, she probably won't care. I smiled. There's no need for that. I just want to leave as soon as possible. Don't want to create more trouble. What leaving? A female voice suddenly came from behind them. I turned around and met Tanya's deep eyes. My heart trembled slightly. I opened my mouth wanting to explain something, but wasn't sure if she had heard, or how much she had heard. Fortunately, Mrs. Tang quickly smoothed things over. It's nothing. How did you come over here? Tanya didn't ask much, just glanced at the cake on the stage. Mom, it's time for you to go up and cut the cake. Mrs. Tang rubbed her temples, declining. I'm feeling a bit unwell. You go up and cut the cake. After saying this, she no longer looked at them, had the servants help her upstairs. After watching Mrs. Tang go upstairs, Tanya extended her hand to me. Come on, let's go cut the cake. But I shook my head, raising my injured hand. I can't. The injury hasn't healed yet. You should find Sean. A flash of surprise crossed the woman's eyes, as if she didn't understand why I said this. She felt something had slipped beyond her control. Why should I go find him? This time it was her turn to be confused. Why not him? Isn't it always you who abandons me to find Sean? These 5 years, she had rushed off countless times for Sean. Now that I'm actively giving her the opportunity. She looked incredulous. What's going on? I smiled slightly, because you'd have a good relationship. It's just cutting a cake. No big deal. Seeing my smiling face. Not looking angry at all. Though she felt something was off. She didn't say more. Walking straight to Sean. Leaning down to whisper something in his ear. Sean's face turned red, but he still nodded. Taking his arm and stepping onto the stage. Holding hands together as they cut the cake. To the melodious piano music. The two leaning intimately together. Didn't look like they were cutting a birthday cake, but more like cutting a wedding cake. Halfway through the banquet, some elderly guests left early. Due to physical reasons. Those remaining were mostly young people. And these young people had grown up with Tanya since childhood. They knew everything about her and Sean. Seeing them like this now. Applause immediately erupted. Some troublemakers even clapped and cheered. Kiss kiss. Making Sean's face even redder. Tanya's earlobes also turned slightly red. She didn't kiss Sean, but didn't stop the crowd from cheering either. I didn't care. I took out my phone, silently calculating the time I needed to leave. If the flight took off in 3 hours, then I had to leave now. But this silent demeanor looked like sadness to everyone else. Soon, a group of socialites and young masters led by Quinn walked over to me with mocking smiles. When I looked up, a crowd had already surrounded me. Quinn looked at me with a beaming smile. Jason, so what if you've been married to my sister for years? You can only stand here desolately, watching my sister and Sean being affectionate. I already told you long ago. My sister likes Sean. Being with you was just to heal her broken heart. Anyone with sense would have left already. How can you still shamelessly cling to my sister? I still had to rush back to pack, not wanting to deal with these people. I turned to leave, but this group became even more aggressive. An ugly duckling still wants to become a swan. What are you dreaming about? If Sean hadn't gone abroad, do you think someone like you could sit in the Tang family's son-in-law position? Don't you know what you are? I advise you, if you're smart, just obediently step down voluntarily. Get out of the Tang family. They spoke while pushing me. Are you mute? We're talking to you, did you hear? Seeing that I remained silent, one hot-tempered person finally couldn't stand it and pushed me hard backward. A loud crash. My entire body slammed heavily into the extremely tall champagne tower behind me. Wine glasses shattered into pieces. White wine mixed with red blood, creating a shocking sight. Instantly all eyes turned to me. Tanya on stage watched this scene, her pupils constricting. She quickly let go of Sean's hand and hurried over, looking at me lying on the ground covered in blood. Her eyes filled with fury. She quickly crouched down to help me up, while calling for a private doctor, and looking up coldly at the people around. Who did this? Everyone was too scared to speak. Her face was extremely grim. Just as she was about to speak again, a bodyguard suddenly ran over Ms. Tang. Sean suddenly says his stomach hurts badly. Please go check on him quickly. Tanya didn't let go of me, just frowned slightly. Is it serious? The bodyguard looked anxious. Sean is in so much pain he's rolling around. This time it was Tanya who hesitated. She looked at me, a flash of uncertainty crossing her face. Jason, I understood what she wanted to say. Speaking calmly, I know he's been pampered since childhood. Even a small injury bothers him for a whole day, and you're used to taking care of him. Unexpectedly, I had stolen the words she was about to say. Her lips moved slightly, but she couldn't say a word. I had already struggled to stand up and continued. It's okay, go be with him. Let the doctor see him first. I can handle this myself. For some reason, watching my indifferent demeanor, she felt inexplicably panicked. I had always been this generous before, but today, despite being so seriously injured, I was being overly generous. So generous that her reflection no longer appeared in my eyes. This wasn't like my former self whose eyes were always full of her. When did I become like this? Tanya was about to continue speaking, but from not far away came Sean's pained cries. Finally, she stopped hesitating, looking at me with guilt. Jason, I'll come check on you later. I'll compensate you for this. After saying this without further hesitation, she abandoned me and quickly left, watching her anxiously supporting Sean, while murmuring softly and rushing outside. A mocking smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, but this expression in Quinn and the other's eyes looked like the sadness of being abandoned. I thought acting like this would make my sister feel some pity, but she still abandoned you in the end. Jason, if you had any self-awareness, you'd leave the Tang family yourself. I ignored this group of people, borrowed an empty room from the servants, applied medicine to myself, and changed into a fresh set of clothes. Before limping away, returning to the villa, I went straight upstairs to pack. After bringing the luggage downstairs, I casually placed the divorce agreement signed with both our names on the table. Just as I opened the door to leave, I came face to face with someone about to enter. Seeing me, Quinn immediately launched into complaints. Why are you running around? My sister asked me to bring you medicine. I really don't know what she's thinking. Instead of staying by Sean's side, she's still worried about you and insisted I come over. Made me search for you for ages. I don't need it. You should save it for Sean instead. I remained completely calm. After speaking, I pushed Quinn's hand away and tried to leave. It was only then that Quinn noticed the suitcase I was carrying. Her expression changed dramatically. She grabbed my hand. What are you doing? I looked at her with emotionless eyes. I'm carrying luggage. What do you think I'm doing? It's pretty obvious. I'm leaving. Your sister likes Sean, and you've always been clamoring for Sean to be your brother-in-law. Now I'm voluntarily divorcing and stepping aside to make room for him. Hearing these words, Quinn's eyes widened. She seemed completely stunned, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. After all, how much I loved Tanya was known throughout their circle. How could I just leave like this now? She suddenly seemed to understand something. Even her voice trembled. Jason, stop pretending. You love my sister so much. You were so shameless about marrying her back then. How could you voluntarily propose divorce now? I get it. You're playing hard to get, aren't you? Let me tell you, this trick won't work on my sister. I remained calm. Whether it's real or not, the divorce agreement is on the table. You can go check if it's genuine. Quinn, you've been holding my hand. Don't tell me you can't bear to see me leave. At these words, Quinn immediately bristled, quickly releasing my hand. How could that be possible? I can't wait for you to leave right now. Once you're gone, I'll immediately set off fireworks to celebrate. If my sister knew you left voluntarily, she'd probably be so happy. For some reason, that last sentence lacked conviction, but I no longer looked at her. Saying then, congratulations, you've all gotten what you wanted, and walked out the door. Watching my departing figure without a trace of reluctance, Quinn felt for the first time that something had completely spiraled out of control. She inexplicably panicked, anxiously calling out, Jason, where exactly are you going? Aren't you going to say goodbye to my sister? My motion of pulling the suitcase paused slightly. I turned back to look at Quinn, and at the villa behind her. To repay a debt of gratitude, I pretended to love Tanya for 5 years, becoming the man they called shameless, who pestered Tanya relentlessly. To repay a debt of gratitude, I threw away my dreams, gave up my future, and lost myself. For 5 years I tried my best to be a good husband, but received not an ounce of respect, had no sense of self. I lived this suffocating life for 5 whole years. Finally, I had repaid my debt. Finally, I had gained my freedom. I smiled for the first time. Such a genuine smile. So carefree. I'm going to live a life that belongs only to me. From now on, everything here has nothing to do with me. Goodbye forever, Tang family. Goodbye forever, Tanya. I waved my hand in liberation, carrying my suitcase under the moonlight, disappearing into the vast night. 3 days later, Tanya finally had time to come back for a change of clothes. As soon as she entered, she habitually called my name. She called several times, only summoning a few servants. Where is he? Watching the servants awkwardly help her change shoes and take her coat. She frowned. The servant stammered for a long time before saying, "Sir isn't home." She put on her slippers and walked inside. Not home again. Last time, when he accompanied Sean, who was burned by the hot pot, to the hospital, it was the same when I came back. He disappeared without a word to go sketching for several days. This time he also helped Sean to the hospital first, and before leaving he had even generously told her that she could go to the hospital. Now he was throwing another tantrum and running away from home. The irritation in her heart gradually turned into an inexplicable rage. Tanya had just walked to the sofa when she immediately spotted the documents on the table. Normally she wouldn't even glance at them, but today, as if possessed, she picked up the documents from the table. The 5 large characters divorce agreement struck her eyes just like that, and at the bottom where the wife's signature should be, her name clearly appeared there. In an instant, her face became extremely cold. The light in her eyes also disappeared, leaving only endless coldness and darkness. She reached out to touch her signature, discovering it wasn't printed or forged, but genuinely written by herself. Yet in her memory, she had never signed a divorce agreement. Suddenly her eyes narrowed slightly. She suddenly remembered that morning when they had Western breakfast. He seemed to have handed her something for her to sign. At that time she was busy chatting with Sean, so she hadn't paid attention. Looking back now, that must have been the divorce agreement. The document in her hands was crumpled by her grip, then torn to shreds by her, scattered everywhere. Divorce me. This was undoubtedly the biggest joke in the world. He loved her so much, loved her enough to jump into the sea for her. She had abandoned him so many times without ever seeing him angry. It must be that she'd been busy taking care of Sean lately, making him a bit jealous. After 5 years, he could afford to be a little jealous. Anyway, he would come back on his own eventually. If he still hadn't come back, well, he would come back. Tanya was just that certain. After all, in this world besides her, no one else loved him like their own life. In the following days, the servants in the villa tactfully stopped mentioning me, until this day when Tanya brought Sean back from the hospital. Looking at the mediocre tasting porridge before them, Quinn threw down her spoon, complaining, "Who made this porridge? Where's Jason? Have him make us a new bowl." A nearby servant hesitantly spoke, "Miss, Sir hasn't come back for several days." Quinn's eyes immediately widened. He hasn't come back at all. She had always thought my talk of divorce was just for show. After all, their family was the only wealthy household I could ever hope to reach in this lifetime. Any person would hold on tightly. Thinking of the divorce agreement she saw on the table that day, she looked up at Tanya across from her. According to the servants, Tanya had also seen that divorce agreement when she came back, but didn't take it seriously, and directly tore up the document and threw it in the trash. She bit her lip and looked at Sean beside her. He was quietly drinking his porridge, as if he hadn't heard what they were talking about at all. Her sister had yearned for Sean for so many years. Now Sean seemed to have intentions of reciprocating, and I had divorced and stepped aside. By all rights, her sister should be happy. Quinn turned to look at Tanya. Her brows were tightly furrowed, as if she was displeased by my long absence. Thinking of me added another layer of resentment to her heart. Fine if he left, but he's still disturbing my sister's peace of mind. After the meal, Sean was helped upstairs to rest by the servants. Quinn looked at Tanya still sitting in her original spot. After thinking for a moment, she spoke, "Sister, when are you going to give Sean official status? I've been hoping for him to be my brother-in-law for years." Tanya suddenly looked up at her. "What did you say?" Quinn had always been a bit afraid of this sister since childhood. She couldn't help but shrink back, but still stubbornly said, "Jason has already divorced you, and you don't like him anyway. Why not be with Sean?" How do you know he divorced me? She swallowed and said, Last time didn't you ask me to bring him medicine? I happened to see the divorce agreement then. It's just that. At the time I thought he was just talking. But seeing that he hasn't come back for so long, I have to believe he really wants a divorce. After hearing her words, Tanya's face became even more grim. Without much thought she knew. The divorce agreement he had left behind wasn't a tantrum, but a genuine intention to divorce her. The coffee cup in her hand was slammed onto the table. He loves me so much, yet he still wants to divorce me. She had been too lenient with him all these years. Besides, where could he go after leaving her? Call him. Tell him to stop throwing tantrums and come back immediately. The servant opened her mouth, looking troubled. We tried calling him before, but we can't get through. Tanya took out her phone and opened her contacts, scrolling up and down, only to realize she didn't have his phone number saved. Last time, it was her assistant who made the call. After getting my number from the servants, she dialed it on her phone, but only heard a mechanical female voice. The number you have dialed is out of service. He had actually canceled his number. The woman stared at the dark screen, her eyes growing increasingly cold. She suddenly stood up and walked outside. Even Quinn's loud calls from behind couldn't stop her. It wasn't until she was driving and stopped at a red light that Tanya finally calmed down. Where would she go to find me? I had been orphaned since childhood, living in the orphanage until the Tang family sponsored me. Amid the honking of car horns, she turned around and drove toward the orphanage, looking at the woman before her. The director's face turned cold for the first time. She first asked other teachers to take the children away, then sat down in her chair. Ms. Tang, please sit. What brings you here? Tanya didn't want to mind the director's distant attitude. She wanted to ask the director if she knew where Jason had gone. She originally wanted to say that the house had been a mess these past few days without him, but thinking of the person's identity before her, she ultimately swallowed her unfinished words. A flash of mockery crossed the director's eyes after 5 years of marriage. Is this how Tanya refers to Jason? The director felt a pang of heartache, which then turned into relief. Relief that Jason had repaid his debt early and divorced her. Otherwise, with this kind of woman, he truly wouldn't be worth spending a lifetime with. The director didn't even look at Tanya and began handling her own affairs. You've been married to Jason for 5 years and don't know where he went. How would I know? Ms. Tang, please leave. After returning empty-handed, Tanya punched the steering wheel. She had always thought the divorce agreement I left behind was just me throwing a tantrum. Now that I had canceled my phone number and no one knew where I had gone, she had to admit that I truly wanted to divorce her, but her heart was full of unwillingness. I had clearly loved her so much before. Why would I choose to leave her so decisively? Just then, her phone rang beside her. After answering, Mrs. Tang's weak voice came from the other end. Tanya, come back. Mom has something to tell you. Mrs. Tang looked at the person before her and sighed. Now that you and Jason are divorced, and Sean has also divorced and returned to the country, you and Sean. Tanya quickly interrupted Mrs. Tang's words. I didn't agree to divorce Jason. Mrs. Tang's eyes widened in surprise, taking out a divorce certificate from the drawer. But you've already received the divorce certificate. Didn't Jason tell you? Seeing the confusion flash in her eyes, Mrs. Tang was even more surprised. She had thought that I simply hadn't told my daughter about going abroad. She hadn't expected that I hadn't even mentioned the divorce. Then how had they signed the divorce agreement? Tanya looked at the divorce certificate before her, her face darkening. The raging fire burning in her chest spread all the way to her eyes. She had only thought that I had merely signed a divorce agreement with her. She hadn't expected that I had even obtained the divorce certificate. If she remembered correctly, getting a divorce certificate required a 1-month cooling-off period. That meant more than a month ago I had already prepared to divorce her. looking at Mrs. Tang's confused gaze. She spoke a few words casually, then asked Mrs. Tang why she wanted to set her up with Sean. Mrs. Tang smiled. You were willing to die for Sean back then. Now that Sean has returned to the country, and Jason has divorced you, I thought. Everyone used to say you and Sean weren't suitable. Now that both of you are divorced, everyone's saying you're a perfect match. An uncomfortable feeling spread from her heart. But I didn't agree to divorce Jason. For some reason, hearing about divorcing me, she suddenly felt panicked. After 5 years of marriage, she had grown accustomed to my care. If she divorced Maitre Claude can make mistakes, please double-check responses. She couldn't imagine how badly she would live. What's more, I loved her like my own life. My divorce was definitely just a tantrum. As for Sean, she did like him. After all, he was her first love from youth. She had yearned for him for so many years. But asking her to give up, I seemed unable to do it. Seeing the conflict in Tanya's eyes, Mrs. Tang took out another document from the drawer. When Tanya saw the 4 large characters gratitude agreement on the document, and my signature at the bottom, she immediately widened her eyes. Mom, what does this mean? After all, she was her own daughter. Mrs. Tang didn't want to hide it from her. Back when Sean got married and went abroad, you, such a proud princess, became so dejected. So I thought of finding someone to help you move on. And Jason happened to come to repay a debt. So the two of them discussed and quickly reached an agreement. As long as I stayed with Tanya for 5 years and helped her move on from this relationship, Jason's debt repayment would be considered complete. To be honest, Jason did well these 5 years, but he also constantly reminded himself, which is why he always called Mrs. Tang Aunt. Mrs. Tang had initially thought that if Sean never returned to the country, she would treat me as a real son-in-law. Who knew that as soon as the 5-year agreement ended, Sean returned to the country, and her daughter got into a car accident trying to see Sean. Mrs. Tang was still hesitating how to bring it up when I approached her, first proposing divorce and withdrawal. After Mrs. Tang's explanation, Tanya could no longer hear anything. She gripped the gratitude agreement tightly with both hands, trembling continuously. Her mind went completely blank. What had she heard? So for these 5 years, all my kindness to her was because of repaying a debt. So I had never loved her. So after Sean returned to the country, I was so eager to divorce her. But the love in my eyes for her couldn't have been fake. If I truly didn't love her, how could I have jumped into the sea for her? How could I have been good to her for 5 years? She looked at the agreement before her with complex emotions. It clearly listed everything I had to do for her these 5 years. The further she read, the darker her expression became. From major responsibilities for her life to minor household duties I had to handle personally. Every bit of my kindness to her was all because of the agree, meant without any personal feelings. Tanya's last trace of hope was extinguished by the densely packed conditions in the agreement. Overwhelming emotions burst forth like a broken dam, flooding into her eyes, almost destroying her. With a tearing sound, the agreement became powder in her hands. In Mrs. Tang's eyes, her daughter had always been calm and composed, only losing control when Sean married and went abroad. This was the second time she had been so angry over someone else. Mrs. Tang swallowed the words she wanted to say. Tanya took several deep breaths, forcing herself to calm down. Since I had signed this agreement with her mother, then about my leaving, Mrs. Tang must know. She looked up at her mother, a hint of coldness in her eyes. Mom, you should know where Jason went, right? Mrs. Tang looked at her for a long time. She should know. After all, my plane ticket abroad and everything else was her responsibility. But I had asked Mrs. Tang not to reveal my whereabouts, so she looked at her daughter with difficulty. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. Mrs. Tang smiled bitterly. Even if I told you, it wouldn't matter. I might have anticipated this day would come. Maybe she had guessed. She was Tanya's mother after all, and would definitely tell her. So, I never went to study in the country she arranged. Tanya's eyes immediately filled with disappointment. She never knew that I would leave so decisively, just like when I suddenly entered her world back then. But Mrs. Tang, aside from a trace of regret, had no other emotions, just tentatively asking, "What about you and Sean?" A sharp ringtone suddenly sounded. The moment she answered, Quinn's anxious voice came from the other end. "Sister, come back quickly. Something happened to Sean." When Tanya returned home, she saw several foreigners standing outside the villa. The leading woman had distant features, looking coldly at Sean, who was covering his face and crying. Tanya immediately recognized her. That was Sean's ex-wife. She quickly walked over. Quinn, who was beside her, saw her and quickly waved, "Sister, come quickly." Several people all looked toward her, especially Sean's ex-wife, who looked her up and down. The pressure in her eyes made Tanya inexplicably uneasy. Tanya walked up to Sean, looking at the person before her. "Ms. Yang, what brings you to the Tang family?" Yang Ting looked at her and laughed coldly. "What am I here for? Doesn't Ms. Tang know best? Sean and I were married for 5 years, and you kept harassing him. Come to think of it, our divorce couldn't have happened without your help." Tanya was confused. So those 5 years when she would travel abroad once a week to secretly visit Sean, but she had always disguised it well. The gifts she brought were all common items. Yang Ting looked at Tanya like she was looking at a fool. Although she and Sean had a whirlwind marriage, she had initially approached it with genuine intentions to love Sean with her whole heart, until she completely took control of the family business and became busy reorganizing the family enterprise. That's when she began neglecting Sean. Seeing the social media posts he shared, she had thought about explaining to him, but was blocked by countless phone calls. It was during this period that around Sean, many small gifts that couldn't be found in America mysteriously appeared. She checked the security cameras and discovered it was Tanya secretly placing these gifts at their front door. An inexplicable rage burned in her chest. She threw all these gifts in front of Sean. They had countless explosive arguments. Finally, Sean secretly divorced and returned to his home country behind her back. Yang Ting looked at the person before her. "Ms. Tang really has good upbringing. Having a husband of your own, yet still unable to forget someone else's husband." One sentence made Tanya's face turn pale instantly. "I'm already divorced." Sean behind her suddenly looked up at her, surprise flashing in his eyes. Since childhood, he had always clearly known that Tanya liked him, but he only saw her as a sister, a childhood friend. The night he learned from friends that she was going to confess to him, he was preparing to bring his girlfriend home to meet his parents. To avoid embarrassment, he married Yang Ting and went abroad. Perhaps because the marriage was too hasty. Yang Ting had indeed loved him deeply at first, but later as business gradually became busy, plus the subtle provocations from other men outside, and his delayed explanations, their marriage gradually developed cracks. The social media posts he shared were also seen by Tanya, so those gifts appeared outside their home. He knew Tanya was also married and was aware that these actions would cause great trouble for both couples. So, he had wanted to quietly dispose of all these gifts, but was caught red-handed by Yang Ting the day he threw them away. All the accumulated conflicts exploded in that moment. Later he secretly divorced and returned home, with his parents far abroad unable to help him. Just when he was thinking of staying at his family's hotel, Tanya somehow found out about his divorce and came looking for him. He was naturally timid. The boldest thing he had ever done was secretly divorcing Yang Ting. When faced with Tanya, who had always liked him, he firmly refused and said he had a place to stay. But she acted as if she hadn't heard, forcefully bringing him back to the Tang family. When he thought I didn't want him to move in, he felt relieved, thinking he could use this as an excuse to leave. Who knew I actually agreed? Later, when his house renovation was finished, He secretly moved out while she wasn't home. After all, they were friends of many years. He didn't want to ruin their friendship. Every time he refused her. In her eyes, it became something else entirely. This undoubtedly troubled him. After hearing that I had divorced her and left, his heart filled with guilt. He shouldn't have returned to the country. Yang Ting didn't even look at Tanya, directly pulling Sean from behind her. Tanya instinctively tried to grab him, but was blocked by the bodyguards Yang Ting had brought. What happened before was my fault, Sean. I apologize to you. I promise. These things won't happen again in the future. Will you come home with me now? As for the divorce agreement, I've applied to withdraw it. Sean was full of hesitation. Sean, don't agree to her. Visible panic in Tanya's eyes. She clearly knew the emotional wounds Sean had suffered because of Yang Ting those years. If he went back, wouldn't he be repeating the same mistakes? Quinn beside her also kept nodding. Yes, Sean. My sister is the best. Sean looked at the hand that Yang Ting gripped tightly, took a deep breath, and looked up at Tanya. Tanya, thank you for taking care of me these days. One sentence completely shattered Tanya before him. Sean bit his lip. Since childhood, my nature has been weak and easily bullied. I don't know how to refuse. You've always been helping me. I'm very grateful to you. Now I have the courage to refuse. But because of fear, I always cry when refusing, which becomes something else entirely in your eyes. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding I caused. Jason is a good man. I also need to apologize to him. Tanya, let's not see each other anymore. I don't know how this farce ended. The crowd dispersed. The villa was left with only Tanya again, seeing her daughter become dejected once more. Mrs. Tang felt both angry and heartbroken. Angry that she always had to become like this, because of emotional matters. Heartbroken that her body would suffer again. And this time, there was no one like Jason to pull her out. One blow after another made Tanya seem like a different person. This gossip was also spread by netizens across the ocean. In Italy, when I walked out of the art studio, my fellow student was holding his phone, showing me Tanya's gossip. Jason, look at this. I glanced at the screen while holding my easel. Then hummed, that's your reaction. My friend looked at me in confusion. I helplessly shrugged. What other reaction did you expect? The circle is only so big. Everyone knows about my situation. After all, when Tanya had a car accident for love and harassed another's husband, it caused quite a stir. And they also knew some of what I had done. But their reaction, compared to those around Tanya, was like night and day. Such a good person. Tanya doesn't cherish him. Insisting on pestering someone else's husband. Really shameless. My friend dramatically threw up his arms, his face indignant, if you ask me. I'd want to slap her twice. I smiled quietly. From the moment I left the country, I stopped caring about things back home. Late at night, when I finished my last painting, a sharp ringtone suddenly broke the silence. It was another classmate who had returned home calling. As soon as the phone was answered, an excited voice came from the other end. Jason. Jason, let me tell you, Tanya has gone crazy. Crazy, I frowned. Only then did I learn that since I divorced Tanya and went abroad, plus her first love went back to America with his ex-wife, Tanya became dejected, staying home all day, drinking heavily. If it were before, I would have already prepared hangover soup for her. Now, without my attentive care, she inexplicably remembered my goodness, plus others' comments about how good I was to her. Her desire to find me grew stronger. Unfortunately, I hadn't gone to the country Mrs. Tang arranged. She didn't even know where I was. To find me, she even neglected the company, even going after all those people who had hurt me, getting revenge on them. Even Quinn, who had initially disliked me, was forcibly sent to Austria. Leah, this series of crazy actions. If she wasn't crazy, then what was she? I touched the roses on the windowsill and lowered my eyes. From the day I started repaying my debt, I only saw Tanya as a task. just wanting to finish repaying the debt quickly and leave the country early. That day, I had initially planned to go to the country Mrs. Tang arranged, but after thinking about it, I still bought a new ticket to Italy. After landing, from then on, I devoted myself wholeheartedly to my career, never paying attention to Tanya's affairs again. Now hearing about her situation, I only thought of one phrase: belated affection is worthless. What's more, I don't love her, so why would I care about her regret? I continued carrying my easel to the studio to paint. As I went out, I saw my friend standing at the door waiting for me. After receiving the warm bread from his hands, I handed him the birthday gift I had prepared. The two of us walked to the studio chatting as we went, but we were told that the class in the studio was cancelled today because there was a very famous art master coming to the school to give a lecture. The two of us packed up our easels and headed to the school. The lecture hall was packed with people, warm, and I desperately squeezed our way in, only managing to grab the last two seats in the back. As the knocking sound echoed, the classroom quickly fell silent. When I saw who entered, the originally bustling classroom instantly became quiet, for no other reason than the master giving the lecture was incredibly handsome. In the art world, they had seen countless beautiful people, but not one person was more handsome than the man standing before us. Only I suddenly held my breath after seeing him clearly, because I knew this person. Long time no see, Jason. The person before me looked at me with a smile, making my eyes involuntarily redden. Luke had grown up with me in the orphanage. Childhood sweethearts. He and Sophie were a few years older than me, so they both took care of me together. Our fates were simply different. He and Sophie were successively adopted by loving families. Only I remained at the orphanage, finally sponsored by the Tang family. Looking at my thin frame before him, Luke's eyes were filled with heartache. Back then, under his and Sophie's care, I too had been a happy little boy. But later fate played tricks. He and Sophie were adopted one after another. At that time we were all young, without any contact information. The three of us lost touch just like that. Over the years he had been searching for the other two. In the end he only found Sophie. Until later, he saw a news story on the Tang family's official website about Tanya's wedding. Only then did she learn that I had married Tanya. She also knew about the things Tanya had done, and felt even more heartbroken for me. Someone who had originally been lively and cheerful was tortured by this marriage until I was covered in scars. Learning that I had come to Italy for further studies, she and Sophie discussed moving to Rome. The two of us talked for quite a while. Only then did I learn that Luke and Sophie had gotten married. The two had moved to Rome to see me sooner. This time I couldn't hold back anymore. I wanted to vent all the grievances of these years. After meeting Sophie at dinner that evening, the tears I had just held back came flooding out again. The three of us talked for a long time. Sophie brought dishes I liked to my side, then asked with concern, Jason, what are your plans for the future? I finished the last piece of steak on my plate, shaking my head. Nothing for now. Right now I just want to graduate first, then hold my own art exhibition, or find a job I love. As for returning home, confusion flashed in my eyes. Return home? I definitely need to go back to see the director. After all the day I said goodbye to her. She secretly slipped money into my bag. But returning home also means encountering Tanya. Thinking of the crazy things she did, my brows furrowed. Again, the couple exchanged glances, quickly changing the subject. Let's eat first. We'll think about the future later. We'll all support you. Before I knew it, it was another deep autumn, and I welcomed my own graduation ceremony. Looking at the scene before me, I was filled with emotion. A graduation ceremony delayed by 5 years. I had finally lived to see it. Happy graduation, Jason. Friends presented flowers and blessings. During our final meal together, I also let loose and had a few drinks. The bitter alcohol slid down my throat. A sour feeling welled up in my heart, thinking how we would rarely meet in the future. Everyone cried and laughed until late into the night. A week later I packed my luggage, said goodbye to my friends in Italy, and returned home with Luke and Sophie. Not for a permanent stay, just temporarily. One reason was wanting to come back to see the director. The other was at my friend's request, to collaborate with me on an art exhibition. Seeing the director I hadn't seen in 2 years, my eyes reddened again. The director touched my hand, hearing that I had completed my studies and achieved my dreams. Her eyes were full of comfort. As we chatted, the director suddenly spoke up, "By the way, not long after you went abroad, Tanya came to the orphanage looking for me, to ask about your whereabouts." It had been so long since I heard Tanya's name. I was momentarily dazed. The director continued speaking beside me, but looking at her demeanor, I could tell she hadn't treated you well. So I didn't tell her anything at all. After having dinner with the director, I finally returned to Luke's villa. Since this was only a brief return to the country, Luke and Sophie had directly brought me back to their home. Seeing me return, Sophie rushed over to greet me, both caring for me and bringing me to the dining room for soup. After the two of us discussed next week's art exhibition for quite a while, I finally went back to my room to rest. Tang Corporation Building. Tanya stared at the photo on her desk in a daze for a long time. 2 years, a full 2 years. She had mobilized all of the Tang family's resources, but still hadn't found any trace of my whereabouts. Looking at the young person in the photo, a bitter smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. This was our wedding photo, also the only photo we had taken together in 5 years. People always learn to cherish only after they've lost something. She understood this saying now. When I first left, she thought she was just used to my care. That's why she couldn't adapt to my departure, until she saw the gratitude agreement between me and Mrs. Tang, and everything that happened afterward. Only then did she realize her habit of me had long since turned into love. It was because of Sean's presence in the past that she had overlooked this affection. Now, when she finally acknowledged this love, I had already left her world long ago. The office door was knocked from outside. Then her assistant walked in. "Miss Tang, tomorrow's emerging artist exhibition in the city center has invited you to attend." It was only after the divorce that Tanya discovered how little she truly knew about me. When I returned from my sketching trip back then, she thought I had suddenly become interested in painting. Only later did she learn I had been studying art since childhood. If not for giving up studying abroad to repay my debt, I would have already become a shining star in this field. Perhaps to understand me better, or perhaps to get a little closer to me, she would attend every art exhibition held in the city. On the other side, my classmate had already sent me the list of media and entrepreneurs invited to this exhibition, so I could be prepared. When I saw Tanya's name on the list, I was momentarily stunned. My classmate, seeing my expression, quickly said, "If you don't want to see her, you don't have to come out for interviews and such." I smiled and shook my head. "It's fine." From the first day I returned to the country, I knew we would meet someday. You can avoid the first day but not the 15th. Besides, what did I have to fear? What I owed her family had long been repaid. We were just strangers now. On the day of the exhibition, a steady stream of visitors followed the guide signs into the gallery. Tanya walked among them. Over these years she had visited many exhibitions and had gained some understanding of the paintings on the walls. Every painting was beautiful, until this particular painting appeared, without unnecessary lines, only mountain scenery in its entirety. The nameplate beside it bore the painting's title, "Freedom." Inexplicably, she thought of me. During our 5 years of marriage, I had always revolved around her, waiting at home 24 hours a day, losing myself, without any freedom. Something that should have been most ordinary had become my luxury. Suddenly, a familiar male voice reached her ears. She followed the sound with her gaze, and immediately saw the person she had been longing for. In an instant her world suddenly became completely silent. Her heart and eyes contained only the man before her. At this moment, I was introducing my artwork to the person in front of me. Jason, I frowned slightly. Before I could turn around, someone embraced me. Sweet perfume invaded my nostrils. Tanya hugged me tightly, her body trembling continuously. Jason, you've finally come back. Just as I was about to push her away, a figure moved faster than me, forcefully pulling the woman away. Jason, are you all right? I shook my head. Luke looked at the woman before him, his gaze cold. Tanya, what face do you have to come see Jason? Just seeing her made Luke remember all the grievances I had suffered those 5 years, his anger growing even stronger. Tanya opened her mouth to explain, but I stepped forward to stop him. Luke, let's talk somewhere else. I didn't want the exhibition that my friend and I had worked so hard to prepare to be ruined by her. The second floor cafe. Luke stood protectively in front of Sophie and me, questioning Tanya before him. Jason has already divorced you. Why are you still here bothering him? Tanya looked at my cold face behind Luke. Her heart felt like it was being tightly squeezed, the pain making it impossible to breathe. I had never faced her with such an expression before. The moment she saw me again, she had so many things she wanted to ask me, but in the end only one sentence came out. Jason, why did you divorce me? Sophie rolled her eyes. What a stupid question. I looked at her calmly. My debt has been repaid. Naturally, I had to leave. From the moment she signed the divorce agreement, I knew the matter of my debt repayment would also be revealed to her. So these 5 years of kindness to me were all because of repaying a debt. Tanya gripped her hands tightly, trembling as she spoke. Yes, I remained just as calm. As if remembering something, I continued. From the moment Mrs. Tang had me sign the gratitude agreement, our relationship was nothing but debt repayment. I reminded myself of this constantly. So after signing, I immediately prepared a divorce agreement. Speaking of which, Tanya was still my first woman. I had to marry before even entering society. Being naive, I was afraid of being deceived by 5 years of illusion. So I prepared a divorce agreement early on. Whenever I felt myself starting to fall for her, I would take out the divorce agreement to remind myself of the relationship and gap between us. Did I ever try to love Tanya? Perhaps I did, but just as my heart began to stir, she would abandon me again and again for Sean. Any normal person would grow weary, let alone someone like me who was repaying a debt. Not despising her was already quite good. 5 years is both long and short. Long enough that I thought this was how my life would be. Short enough that in just an instant I completely freed myself from her. After leaving the country, these emotionless yet realistic words came one after another. Tanya's face grew paler and paler. Tanya, whether it was before, now or in the future, I have never and will never fall in love with you. Between us there was only debt repayment. Whatever her reaction was, I didn't care at all. I just wanted to quickly deal with this matter, then go back down to handle the exhibition. Tanya still wanted to step forward and stop me, but Luke kept blocking her way. She could only watch helplessly as my figure disappeared behind the door. This art exhibition wasn't affected by this small interruption and was ultimately held successfully. To celebrate for me, Luke and Sophie specially reserved my favorite restaurant, but before the food arrived, a bouquet of vibrant roses was delivered first. Excuse me, which one is Mr. Jason? These flowers are from Ms. Tang, specifically congratulating you on the successful exhibition. I didn't accept them at all, just had the messenger return them. Please tell that Ms. Tang, I don't like red roses. Red roses are for expressing deep love. I only like thorny wild roses. What had been a warm atmosphere suddenly became stiff. The messenger held the roses, neither able to advance nor retreat. Seeing that I remained silent for a long time, the messenger finally left quietly. But this didn't deter Tanya. She still sent a bouquet of wild roses to my studio every day, before one bouquet could even get inside. It was thrown into the trash. At yet another exhibition, Tanya specifically intercepted me, wanting to ask why I wouldn't accept her flowers. I looked at her for a long time, then suddenly smiled sarcastically. After being husband and wife for 5 years, she still didn't understand me at all. Because I don't like you, so I don't like anything you send either. Tanya, why can't we part on good terms? I divorced you. Shouldn't you be the happiest person? She took a deep breath. Her eyes seemed to shatter like starlight, her voice somewhat hoarse, instinctively reaching forward to grab my hand. Yes, Jason, your divorce didn't make me happy at all. I had grown accustomed to you being in my life. It wasn't until after you left that I realized the person I truly liked was you. Sean. My feelings for him were just youthful stubbornness. Now he's gone too. Why can't we go back to how things were? How things were. A flash of confusion crossed my eyes. The days of the past. Every single day it was torture for me. I don't want to go back to the past at all. I sidestepped to avoid her hand, my voice also turning cold. Tanya, listen to what you just said. You're just used to me. Like a nanny. It's just that other nannies haven't been like me, willing to risk their lives for you. Do you really realize that you like me? Listen to yourself. Do you even believe these words? Tanya's face also turned pale. Since entering the Tang family at 18, she had never seen such a dejected moment from herself. Tanya had always been proud and arrogant, looking down on others. Now her face had become so unsightly, simply because I wasn't like before, going along with her words, but directly exposing the truest thoughts in her heart. I didn't spare her another glance, turning and leaving. But just as I left the studio, I suddenly received a call from Mrs. Tang. Speaking of Mrs. Tang, I only felt gratitude in my heart. After all, Mrs. Tang had given me an opportunity to repay my debt. Back when I had just started college, after paying tuition, I had almost nothing left. I didn't want to owe the Tang family either. Using 5 years of debt repayment to pay back every penny the Tang family had invested in me was undoubtedly the best method. Both emotionally and logically, I should go see her. Luke looked at me with concern. Mrs. Tang, you and the Tang family are already even. There's no need to go to the Tang house anymore. What if the Tang family makes things difficult for you? After Luke was adopted, his adoptive parents also took him to witness many affairs within wealthy families and taught him many principles. Repaying debts isn't just this kind method of helping Tanya move on from her emotional wounds. But Mrs. Tang insisted on having a young man give up his future, his education, wasting 5 years in marriage. It's truly disgusting. Luke was indeed right. After Mrs. Tang exchanged pleasantries with me, she shifted the topic to Tanya. Between the lines, she was asking me to give Tanya another chance. Luke was actually right. Tanya's emotional wounds were caused by herself and Sean, yet she insisted on having an innocent person like me pull her out of it. My education was gone. My future was gone. My freedom was gone, yet beautifully called debt repayment, making me endure 5 years of wasted time, and still expecting me to be grateful to the Tang family. Where in the world is there such a good deal? Actually, I was unwilling back then too. If I could have smoothly finished college and studied abroad, even if it was just a year or two later than repaying my debt, I could have paid back the Tang family's sponsorship, with interest included. It's just that Mrs. Tang spoiled her daughter too much, couldn't bear to let Tanya suffer a little more, so she was eager to drag me down. Her daughter's life couldn't be ruined by such a small matter. But whether my life was ruined or not, no one cared at all. Mrs. Tang looked at the handsome man before her, feeling nothing but satisfaction and regret. The satisfaction was that such a person as the Tang family's son-in-law wouldn't be bad. The regret was that Tanya had only loved Sean back then, so she missed such a good son-in-law. But now Tanya had also broken things off with Sean. If I could come back to be their family's son-in-law, that wouldn't be bad either. After hearing Mrs. Tang's words, I said nothing. Just placed the bank card I had prepared in front of Mrs. Tang. The money in here is twice the amount the Tang family sponsored me. If there hadn't been that debt repayment, I might have been only 2 years late to pay back the Tang family's sponsorship with principal and interest. The Tang family has always loved doing charity. I wasn't the only person they sponsored. Each time the money was just transferred to their bank cards on schedule. All these years, the Tang family never sought out those sponsored people to make them repay debts. Perhaps I was too naive. Just happened to deliver myself to their door. Now I've come to my senses too. I just don't have the mind to dwell on it too much. After speaking, I no longer looked at Mrs. Tang's reaction, picked up the bank card and walked out. Mrs. Tang was stunned at first, an inexplicable anger rising in her heart. But then thinking of the Luke and Sophie families behind me, she could only swallow this anger. Just as I left the Tang house, I ran right into Tanya, who was just returning. "Jason, why did you come here?" The woman's words carried a hint of surprise and joy. I laughed mockingly. "Mrs. Tang wants me to be like 7 years ago. Give up my future and career? Continue wasting my youth by your side?" Tanya's face immediately turned pale. She suddenly remembered that agreement she had seen 2 years ago. In those 5 years of debt repayment, I had to give up everything and stay by her side wholeheartedly. A normal person would go crazy staying 1 or 2 years, let alone me having to stay for a full 5 years. Plus her treatment of me during those 5 years. One can imagine how unbearable my days were. Pain spread throughout her entire body. She clenched her fists tightly. "I'm sorry." I had long lost the patience to listen to her speak. Without even glancing at her, I brushed past her directly, perhaps because of my words. Tanya didn't come looking for me for the next few days. I was happy to have some peace, until this day at the Liu family banquet. As Luke's brother, I was also invited. At the banquet, a shrill voice came from behind me. "What are you doing here?" I turned around to see Quinn charging straight at me. After all, she was Mrs. Tang's daughter. Mrs. Tang couldn't bear to see her suffer in Australia, so she begged Tanya to bring her back. Looking at me before her, Quinn's heart was full of resentment. "It's all your fault. Divorce if you want a divorce. But you also caused my sister to send me to Australia." For 2 whole years before Tanya brought her back, behind me was the Champagne Tower. I instinctively tried to dodge, but missed my footing on the steps. Jason's Sophie quickly grabbed me, pulling me behind her. Quinn couldn't stop and crashed straight into the Champagne Tower. A loud crash echoed. Everyone turned to look this way. They saw Quinn collapsed in the Champagne Tower. Glass shattered everywhere. Her body was covered with bloody cuts. Quinn hearing the commotion, Tanya rushed over, wanting to help her up. The moment she touched her, Quinn cried out in pain. Sophie beside me checked me over. After confirming I was unharmed, she turned to look at Quinn on the ground. The Tang family really has good upbringing. Inexplicably charging forward to attack Jason. What did our Jason ever do to provoke you? If I remember correctly, 2 years ago it was also Miss Tang and a group of people who pushed our Jason into the Champagne Tower. Hearing this, Tanya's outstretched hand froze in midair, looking at me behind Sophie with complex emotions. I looked at the mess before me, my face full of sarcasm, facing others pointing and whispering. Quinn's face turned even redder. Not caring about anything else, she pointed at me. "It's all your fault. If not for you, how would I have been sent to Australia?" Originally with his family background, going to Australia should have been smooth sailing. Who knew Tanya was determined to teach her a lesson, and even cut off her credit cards. Each month she could only rely on Mrs. Tang's meager allowance, living difficult days. Blame you back then, who looked down on me and mocked me. And who was it that sent you to Australia? You haven't even figured things out yourself, yet you're blaming me. I said coldly. Quinn, did you leave your brain in Australia? Hearing me indirectly calling her brainless, Quinn tried to stand up and continue her rampage. Enough. Tanya turned to look at Quinn beside her, warning in her voice. Haven't you had enough of Australia? Sister, you're actually speaking to me like this for him. What's so good about him? Skinny as a stick. No physique. No temperament. Just an orphan. Slap. I suddenly stepped forward and slapped Quinn. So what if I'm an orphan? Still better than an ill-mannered person like you. I turned to look at Tanya. Tanya. Control your family? Tanya clenched her fists, coldly instructing her assistant beside her. Assistant Song. Take Miss to the hospital. Assistant Song didn't hesitate anymore, quickly stepping forward to cover Quinn's mouth, and dragged her out. Jason. Tanya looked guilty. I apologize for today's incident. Ms. Tang, you're apologizing to the wrong person. I remained distant from her. She looked at Luke, who had been hurriedly called by the butler. Today was the Liu family's banquet. On his way here, Luke had already learned the general situation from the butler. He walked over, not even glancing at Tanya, who had come to apologize to me, only looking at his wife and brother with concern. Are you hurt? Seeing both shake their heads, Luke finally looked at Tanya about today's farce. My assistant will discuss compensation with Ms. Tang. After saying this, he had the butler beside him escort the two of us upstairs to rest. This banquet wasn't ruined by this small incident until late at night, after Tanya finished discussing compensation with the Liu family butler. She finally returned to the Tang house. Only then did she discover the Tang house was brightly lit. The housekeeper saw her return and hurriedly approached anxiously. Miss, please go and persuade the master and madam. Miss Quinn is still young after all. Tanya listened while walking through the front door. She immediately saw Quinn kneeling on the ground, with several slap marks still on her face, while on the other side of the sofa, Mrs. Tang was crying softly. Tang held a whip in his hand, looking at Quinn with fury. I see you've been raised wrong all these years. What kind of person is Jason, and what's his status in the Liu family? How dare you provoke him? The Tang family's businesses were mostly overseas, so Tang often stayed abroad for work. All household matters were handled by Mrs. Tang. It wasn't until this year that Tang shifted his focus back to the domestic market. After hearing from the butler about everything they had done over the years, Tang's vision darkened again and again. Since you don't understand rules, then you'll stay in Australia. Don't ever come back in this lifetime. Quinn, kneeling on the ground, screamed. Tanya beside her also quickly stepped forward to defend her dad. Quinn is still young. Young what young? She's over 20 and still acts without thinking. And Yao, what's in your brain besides romance? Mrs. Tang, seeing her daughter being scolded, couldn't help but defend her. Mr. Tang. When Mr. Tang heard Mrs. Tang's voice, he remembered he had forgotten about Mrs. Tang too. And you, hearing that your carefully raised daughter got into car accidents twice and ended up in the hospital for a man, and acts like she wants to die every day. The anger that had just barely been extinguished in his eyes flared up again. Those two are immature, but you're acting foolish along with them. Your daughter wants to die for a man. You should just let her die. The Tang family isn't without other children. Your daughter at this age, what won't she learn? She insists on learning all the bad things, not only disrespecting her brother-in-law, but also bullying her elders. What exactly have you been teaching all these years? Hearing her mother and sister being scolded, Tanya's heart grew more sympathetic, but one look from Mr. Tang froze her in place. You and your sister get to the study. I'll deal with you both later. The empty living room was left with only Tang and Mrs. Tang. Tang looked at his sobbing wife, his eyes full of disappointment. Before going abroad, he knew he would be very busy, so he left his longtime assistant and butler to help handle domestic affairs. But before he had even been abroad for a month, both the assistant and butler came to find him. When asked, he learned that Mrs. Tang had fired them immediately upon taking charge, replacing them with her own people. Later, while abroad, he heard about Tanya's car accidents for her first love and abandoning her husband. Only then did he realize That Mrs. Tang had unknowingly spoiled Tanya rotten. The Tang family had always been decisive and resolute, never allowing emotions to interfere, always putting family interests first. No matter how great the emotional wounds, they could quickly recover on their own, rather than needing a man's help for 5 years. And Quinn had also been arrogant and domineering all these years, bullying classmates at school, while Mrs. Tang just gave money to dismiss those who were bullied, never saying a harsh word to Quinn. This also led to me being bullied by these two after marriage, with Mrs. Tang as the guardian not caring at all. From now on I'll stay domestically. If your health is poor, go to the mountain villa for recuperation. One sentence sealed Mrs. Tang's fate for the rest of her life. She looked at the man before her with tears streaming down her face. Do you hate me this much? Mertang looked at his wife before him. If I truly hated you, the day I returned to the country, divorce papers would already be in front of you. After saying this, he no longer looked at Mrs. Tang's reaction and walked straight to the study. In the study, Tanya and Quinn looked at their father before them. In silence, in the sisters' memories, their father had always been abroad and rarely came home. They were both closer to Mrs. Tang. The atmosphere in the study was oppressive. The clock hand on the wall had made several rounds. Before Mr. Tang spoke with a stern face, Quinn, "You'll stay in Australia from now on. I'll have someone keep your passport, and Sukra Triclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Without permission, you're not allowed to return to the country. As for you," Mr. Tang looked up at his daughter before him. His eyes filled with nothing but disappointment. "Chasing after a man. Look how the company's financial reports are doing. From now on, the CEO position will be temporarily held by your second uncle's son. You'll start from the bottom. When you're capable enough, then we'll talk about the CEO position. Both of your cards are completely frozen. Each month, my assistant will give you 10,000 for living expenses. Your shares are also temporarily revoked. We'll discuss them again when you truly mature." With every word Mr. Tang spoke, Quinn's face grew paler. Tanya beside her said nothing, but her hands hanging at her sides were tightly clenched. The news of the Tang Corporation CEO being replaced quickly swept through the entire circle. Sophie excitedly told me the gossip while helping me pack. "You just came back less than a month ago, and you're going back to Italy already." I folded the last piece of clothing and put it in the suitcase. I have no choice but to leave. Originally, my return was just to accompany my classmate in holding an art exhibition. After the exhibition, I should have left. But the Liu family had complicated affairs. The couple could only stay domestically for now and join me abroad after everything was settled. Moreover, if I didn't leave, I would inevitably encounter Tanya. Now that she wasn't the CEO, she had much more free time. I really didn't have the energy to continue entangling with her. I closed the suitcase and placed it by the door. Sophie quickly walked over, staring at me with curiosity. "Do you still remember Sean?" My hand paused. Sini hadn't heard that name in a long time. I only remembered that Sean had gone back to America with his ex-wife. What happened afterward? I hadn't bothered to inquire. Sophie tapped her phone, opened American Entertainment News, and showed it to me. "Sean is disabled." My eyes widened as I read through the news. Only then did I learn that after Sean returned with his ex-wife, things hadn't gone well for him. Although his ex-wife protected Sean, the Yang family was very dissatisfied with his behavior, constantly pointing and whispering. Sean lost his soul and tumbled down the stairs. And at that very moment, rumors broke about Yang Ting and another man. Under various factors, the two had another explosive fight. What happened afterward they didn't know. Sophie put away her phone, because the Liu and Su families also have connections. After Sean learned I was his brother, he asked me to apologize to you on his behalf. After hearing her words, I remained silent. Logically speaking, Sean and I should have never had any interaction. When I married Tanya, Sean was already married and abroad. If it weren't for Tanya constantly wavering between him and Sean, they wouldn't have reached this point. When all was said and done, Tanya was still to blame. Learning that I was returning to Italy and wouldn't be coming back, my domestic friends saw me off. Bottle after bottle of red wine emptied in the private room. We still didn't feel satisfied. So we moved to a club, because I was afraid Sophie would worry. I didn't go to the next venue. After waving goodbye to my friends, as I stood on the roadside preparing to hail a taxi home, a horn sounded from beside me. Jason, get in. After seeing it was Tanya in the car, I instinctively frowned and stepped back. But she had the attitude that if I didn't get in, she wouldn't leave. Behind her car, several other vehicles were honking their horns. Finally, I got into the back seat. Tanya smiled without speaking and drove away until the car stopped outside the Liu house. Neither of us had said a word. Just as I thanked her and prepared to get out, Tanya in front suddenly called out, "Jason." My hand gripping the door handle froze. She looked at the woman before me with confusion. "Jason, if there hadn't been that debt repayment, if there hadn't been Sean, would we still have ended up together?" Her words carried a hint of hope, as if hearing some kind of joke. I laughed out loud. Word by word from the moment you couldn't forget Sean. All these years we were destined to have no future. From the rearview mirror, I clearly saw the woman in the back seat, and how cold I was. Besides, even without all that, we could never be together. As a wife, you never understood me at all. Didn't know my dietary restrictions. Didn't know my phone number. Never knew to give me gifts. From beginning to end, you never cared about me, thinking I was dispensable. Just because I desperately treated you well for 5 years, you felt uncomfortable with my departure. That's not genuine affection. What is genuine affection? It's devotion from beginning to end. It's trading sincerity for sincerity. It's being able to clearly remember everything about me when deciding to grow old together with me. It's eliminating all unfavorable factors, standing firmly by my side, believing in me, protecting me, listening to my explanations, not being speechless when we have misunderstandings, when I'm in trouble, being able to choose me firmly without hesitation. Which of these things could you do? A young lady carefully cultivated since childhood only thinks about others loving her, never thought about how to love others. If Tanya could understand even a little, she wouldn't have gone abroad repeatedly to find her first love while married, nor would she have secretly comforted him while he was married, causing unnecessary misunderstandings. For Sean and his wife, I didn't care about her reaction at all, continuing to say if there hadn't been that debt repayment, we never would have met. I would have had my own life. Tanya stared at me blankly, bitterness filling her throat. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but ultimately remained silent, just quietly watching me open the door and get out. Just as I was about to enter the villa, a bright headlight suddenly shone on my face. I instinctively raised my hand to shield my eyes, but heard a sharp sound of brakes and Tanya's panicked voice. Jason, the culprit of this car accident was Quinn. Now she had been driven mad by resentment, thinking that all this was caused by me. She disregarded everything, breaking free from the bodyguard's restraints, driving the car straight toward me. Who knew that Tanya would push me aside with quick reflexes? Apart from some minor scrapes, I had no other injuries. But Tanya instead, because Quinn kept pressing the gas pedal, not only became disabled in both legs, but also lay in the ICU for over a month before the Liu and Su families could act. Mertang, upon learning this news, directly sent Quinn to prison. As for when she would get out, that was unclear. During this hospitalization period, I had visited Tanya. After all, she had risked her life to save me. Looking at the person covered in breathing tubes, I sighed deeply, my eyes full of complexity. The words I had said in the car that day, Tanya had ultimately taken to heart. But for me it was still too late. Tanya's reason for saving me was merely belated compensation. I looked at her for a long time before finally getting up to leave. Because of her car accident, my original plan to return to Italy had to be postponed. For the next several months, I stayed at the Liu house recovering. One morning, I heard that Tanya had awakened. Upon learning that the person who hit her was Quinn, and that she was disabled in both legs, she showed no reaction. Instead, she was unusually quiet. Until this day. As I repacked my luggage, I found a ring in the drawer. This was the ring I had found when I jumped into the sea years ago. Later, Tanya had used this ring to propose to me. Over 7 years. Due to poor maintenance, the diamond on the ring had long since fallen off. The band had also rusted. I stared at this ring for a long time. Perhaps back then, to the question Tanya asked me in the car, this ring was the best answer. In our 5 years of marriage, it was always me giving unilaterally, while she enjoyed the fruits of my efforts. Without mutual care and nurturing, our marriage had long been like this ring, tarnished. So regardless of any external factors, without her contribution to our marriage, we never could have reached the end. I put the ring back in its box and had the butler deliver it to Tanya. When Tanya saw this ring, she was dazed for a long time. In her memory, she had never given me any gifts. The only ring had been given away to Sean. A friend visiting her saw this ring and suddenly exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't this the one we threw into the sea during our bet back then?" She stared at the ring in her hand, suddenly remembering that day for the sake of their wager. They had thrown this ring into the sea, promising that whoever's male companion could find it would win the land in North City. Although it was just a bet, they had still thoughtfully tied the ring tightly to a fishing line and cast it into the sea with a fishing rod. But even so, not a single person dared to jump into the sea. Except for me, I asked calmly, the person who proposed this bet, whether this wager was real. After getting their definitive answer and seeing the and transfer documents they produced, I jumped into the sea without hesitation, watching the thin figure being swallowed by the waves. Her hands gripping the railing suddenly turned pale. An unprecedented panic surged in her heart. In that instant, she wanted to jump into the sea with me. The next second, I emerged from the water, clutching that ring tightly in my hand. The moment she held me tightly in her arms, she was filled with fear and a trace of inexplicable emotion. Fear that I would disappear in that sea. Only now did she realize what that emotion was. It was affection, it was love. It turned out she had already fallen in love with me. When I jumped into the sea to find the ring, belated memories swept through her entire being. She covered her face and cried bitterly. The butler didn't return to the Liu house until late at night. Coming back with the butler was also a truck full of gifts. As I looked at these gifts in confusion, the butler quickly explained that after Tanya saw that wedding ring, she cried for a long time, finally making a phone call to have a truck full of gifts prepared. As compensation for me, I stared at that pile of gifts for a long time, finally opening them one by one. It was then that I discovered Tanya's compensatory gifts covered everything from my 1st to 18th birthday, plus the 5 years of marriage birthdays, anniversaries, New Year's, Valentine's Day. She had prepared corresponding gifts for all. Each one was something I liked, things that could have been arranged with just a phone call. She had delayed for a full 7 years. I set down the last gift, standing up and telling the butler, "Sell them all. Donate the proceeds to the orphanage." The day of departure drew closer. This parting, who knew when we would meet again? So Luke and Sophie canceled everything to accompany me around the entire city, from seaside sunsets to the highest point of the Ferris wheel, from street-side candied hawthorns to desserts at high-end restaurants. This was the happiest period of my 20-plus years. Sophie served me food while urging, "Eat more. Once you're abroad, it'll be too hard to taste these flavors." Although they had arranged for a chef and housekeeper to go with me, wanting to recreate. The exact same taste in a foreign land was simply impossible. I nodded obediently, eating bite by bite the dishes Sophie served me. On the day of farewell at the airport, I saw Tanya, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. I didn't know her purpose for coming. Looking at the woman in the wheelchair, I felt a flash of pity, but she acted as if nothing had happened, smiling and saying Jason goodbye. Returning to Italy again, I didn't go back to my previous apartment, but moved into the villa. The couple had prepared for me. The 2 servants I brought quickly cleaned the house, and the chef began preparing meals for me for the next week. Besides dining with long unseen friends, I searched for venues to hold art exhibitions. Though busy, I was also happy. Until this evening, I received a phone call. Not from Luke, nor from Sophie, but from the orphanage director. The director said Mrs. Tang had passed away. The director wasn't clear about the complications between me and the Tang family. She just felt that since Mrs. Tang had sponsored me, if possible, I should return to see Mrs. Tang off one last time. In the end, I returned to the country. Seeing the Tang house draped in mourning, my heart grew heavy as well. After all, she was someone who had sponsored me. Coming to see her was no big deal. Entering the mourning hall, I also saw many people who had been sponsored by the Tang family. We nodded at each other but had no conversation. Over the phone, the director had also briefly told me about Mrs. Tang's cause of death. Her health was already poor. After Mertang sent her to the mountain villa for recuperation, her body became even weaker. Quinn's imprisonment and Tanya's disability were well concealed. Until that day, when Mrs. Tang whimsically wanted to chat with Quinn. After all, in Mrs. Tang's memory, Quinn had only been sent to Australia. But when she dialed, no one answered for a long time. In her panic, she asked the housekeeper. Only then did the housekeeper stammer out the truth. How could someone in prison receive her call? In her shock and anger, Mrs. Tang's heart condition relapsed. She stopped breathing on the spot. After entering the mourning hall, I immediately saw Mr. Tang with his full head of white hair, and Tanya sitting in her wheelchair with a numb expression. I held chrysanthemums and bowed 3 times before Mrs. Tang's portrait. Placing the chrysanthemums in front of the portrait, I stared at Mrs. Tang's portrait for a long time. Regarding Mrs. Tang as a person, my emotions were complex. Speaking of gratitude, Mrs. Tang had ruined 5 years of my youth. Speaking of hatred, Mrs. Tang had also sponsored me, allowing me to continue my education. But the dead cannot return to life. Everything from the past vanished with Mrs. Tang's death. I took one last look at Mrs. Tang's portrait before walking to Mr. Tang and bowing slightly. "Uncle, my condolences." Mr. Tang nodded, but said nothing. I then walked to Tanya, looking at her for a long time before softly saying my condolences. Tanya smiled bitterly, also saying nothing, because a direct family member had died. Quinn, who was far away in prison, was also brought out by the guards. After this ordeal in prison, Quinn's face no longer held any arrogance. Her entire being showed only numbness. Even seeing me caused no ripples in her eyes. Until she saw Mrs. Tang's portrait. Quinn suddenly knelt on the ground wailing. Mom, the guests who came to pay respects couldn't bear to watch and turned their heads away. On the day Mrs. Tang was buried, it began to drizzle. With Mrs. Tang's death, other prominent families also sent people to pay respects. It was on this day that Luke and Sophie discovered I had secretly returned, but they said nothing. Still, I explained the situation to them both. Sophie hugged me. "If you were threatened, we wouldn't let it slide either." In the cemetery, Sophie and I shared an umbrella, watching Mrs. Tang's coffin slowly lowered into the ground. Beside us, Quinn cried so hard she nearly fainted. 2 guards behind her held her firmly. After the burial, the mourning guests left one by one. Sophie and I walked at the end, discussing our upcoming plans. Jason, Tanya suddenly called out from behind. I turned to see her standing in the rain looking at me. Could you walk with me for a bit? Sophie looked at me with concern. If I just frowned, Sophie would immediately decline for me. I gripped the umbrella handle, then finally released it. The rain grew heavier. I walked beside Tanya holding the umbrella. The Tang family butler who had arrived also held an umbrella for Tanya, while pushing her wheelchair toward the cemetery exit. Jason, I have no family left. The butler's footsteps pushing the wheelchair stopped. I also stopped and looked at her. Mother deceased. Sister imprisoned. Myself disabled. Father in order to cultivate a new heir. Hasn't returned home in a long time. Even at this funeral he was the first to leave. She opened her mouth wanting to say something, but found herself with nothing to say. What could she say? Wasn't this how they had always interacted over all these years? Perhaps thinking of this, Tanya suddenly laughed bitterly. If only we could start over. Then she could love me wholeheartedly. We wouldn't have reached this point, and she wouldn't die alone. But there's no medicine for regret in this world. Tanya shut out the external noise. For the first time she heard my words so clearly. Life offers no chance for regret or starting over. We can only move forward. Whether it's her or myself, we can only keep moving forward. There won't be a chance to start over between us. This is the 3rd year since our divorce. Between us, we can finally have such a calm conversation for the first time. Let's part on good terms. I said this to her when we first reunited. At that time, she was focused entirely on how to win me back. She completely missed the farewell in my words. The rain suddenly stopped. I folded the umbrella and walked toward the main gate. Let's never meet again. My figure gradually disappeared from her sight. Goodbye, Jason.